Yo guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to give you guys a spoiler-free review for A Quiet Place Part 2. Approximately 14 months ago, over a year ago, I was about to buy tickets to watch A Quiet Place Part 2, and then the entire world went into a pandemic, and I personally have not been back to the movies since. Today, I went back to the movies for the first time in over a year to watch A Quiet Place Part 2, and let me tell you guys, my expectations were blown out of the water. Before we get into it, if you guys are new in here, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn notifications on so you don't miss any time I upload a new video or I go live. But without wasting any more time, let's get right into it. A Quiet Place Part 2 follows the events of the home of the Abbott family, and now they face the terrors of the outside world. They're forced to venture into the unknown, and they realize that the creatures that hunt by sound are not the only threats lurking beyond their sand path. Now, going into this movie, I had minimal expectations. I honestly didn't think they could do anything special. What were they going to do? Bring back John Krasinski's character from the last movie? I'm going to forewarn you, this video is mostly going to be talking about the good of this movie because I could only find one small nitpicky detail about this movie. But without wasting any more time, I want to get right into the good of this movie, and the biggest thing that stood out to me was definitely the sound design. The sound design and sound editing in this movie was 10 times better than I expected. They honestly improved it from the first one. If you guys don't know, the movie starts off with a flashback of what happened before all of these monsters came to the world. It's not a spoiler, it was shown in the trailers and everything like that, so don't worry. This initial flashback shows us the world building that we didn't get to see in the last episode, and this entire movie overall is world building, but especially the flashback shows us what life was like before, and John Krasinski along with the editing team really made sure to show us all the little designs, all the little sound designs, like biting into an apple, starting up the car engine, even just walking. But besides the sound design, one of my other favorite parts of the movie was definitely just the plot overall. Basically, in this movie, we're split off into two groups. I'm not going to say who's in each group because that would obviously be spoilers, but this lets us get introduced to new characters, understand their backstory and why they're doing what they're doing, as well as the characters that don't agree with each other and how they get along by the end. People have lost their faith in the world. They don't know what to believe. They don't want to believe certain things because they don't want to get their hopes up. There's just so much going on at once in the inside of all of these characters that makes them all compelling people. And that's honestly one of my favorite things about this movie, is just the compelling aspects of each and every character. There's not one character in this movie that you don't feel bad for or even just feel for in general. There's so much to do with each of these characters, and honestly, I didn't think it was possible for John Krasinski to do this again. The first movie, the first Quiet Place movie, I have it at a 9.5 out of 10. I cannot find one bad thing about this movie. And this movie A Quiet Place 2 is practically the same thing except one nitpicky thing that I'll talk about later in this video. But overall, the way they design these characters and have them evolve over the course of this movie is just so well done. And that's what makes this movie so perfect. It's because you can't find flaws in these character designs, and the character designs are really what carry the movie in my opinion. The second act especially carries the movie in my opinion. That's where it's super plot heavy, and then it also has sprinkles of character development in there, but the first act and the third act do more with the characters, and the second act is more with the plot. And I think that's a perfect formula, especially for pacing in a horror movie. And also another thing I like about this movie was the monsters. The monsters were utilized way more in this movie, and they were utilized way better. They weren't more mysterious characters as they were in the first one, at least from what I remember. I definitely feel like the first movie was more showing us how they're living, the creativity behind how they're functioning as a family with no sound. But this movie had more of a survival aspect, especially with them on the run. And that's what I really liked about it. And that's what makes this movie so high rated. I honestly went into this movie expecting it to be a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. This movie for me is way higher than that. Stay tuned to the end so you get my rating. But moving on, I definitely think another thing that was just so good in this movie was the editing overall. I know I talked about sound design, but just the pacing of this movie had so much to do with the editing. Like I said, we're focused on two different groups of characters, and so the editing back and forth, building suspense. Going into that, we have the score, the phenomenal score and sound design, it was off the charts, something like I've never seen before. A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place Part 2. And A Quiet Place Part 2 might have an even better score than A Quiet Place 1. So I honestly think this movie's score really carried it and helped with that editing aspect of things, because the suspense that was building and carrying over from group 1 to group 2, that was just all connected because of the score and how it was going back and forth. I watched it in Dolby Cinema. So awesome. Surround sound. It felt like you were in the movie, and I think that is is what really gave me that experience of that thrill and chill of this movie. It's like, I'm here with you guys, and if you die, I die. If you make noise, I make noise. The movie theater was dead silent. It is 100% worth the theater watch. It is 100% worth that $15 to $25, whatever you're paying for the crazy movie ticket prices nowadays. It's worth every single last penny. Now, another thing that complemented the editing really well was the acting. The acting was top tier in this movie. I loved it so much. Phenomenal performances by the three notable characters, in my opinion, were Cillian Murphy's character, Emily Blunt's character, and Millicent Simmons' character. The main character of this movie is played by Millicent Simmons, and she honestly kills it. She does a phenomenal job. I honestly don't know what else to say about her character. She just did so well, and I think that obviously has a lot to do with the writing of the character. John Krasinski killed it with the writing as well. Overall, Millicent Simmons' character was just so perfectly done in this movie, and I definitely think her, Emily Blunt, and Cillian Murphy carried it. I think the younger boy, the brother of Millicent Simmons' character, he was a great addition, but he just honestly didn't have that screen time that I thought would actually make him like a top role in this movie. So now I want to talk about the bad of the movie, and just note here, I'm nitpicking pretty hard because I need something bad to say, or else people are just going to say I love the movie no matter what and I'm biased. I definitely felt like this movie's ending was very, very abrupt, but I think it works with the style of script that John Krasinski was going for. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything here, but the abrupt ending of the movie really fit with what was going on. It definitely leaves, I guess you could say, a plot hole, but it's not like the movie moves forward after that. It's literally the ending, so I don't really see an issue with it. And I personally think there's space for A Quiet Place Part 3. This movie's ending really set stuff up, and maybe Paramount was like, you know, John Krasinski, we like what you're doing. Maybe you leave the ending open in case you want to come back for a part 3. I think that was the perfect move. I honestly was not looking forward to a part 2. At first, I was like, this isn't going to work. Like I said earlier in this video, I don't think this is going to work. I think that it's going to be a stretch. They're only doing this for money. But watching more John Krasinski interviews about this movie and seeing how passionate he still was about these characters and this family's journey, along with watching all of the trailers and stuff like that, I realized that this movie was way more than that. It was way more creative than I thought it could ever be. My final take for the movie is that it's phenomenal, stunning. It had great visuals, editing, and acting, and this movie is much better than I expected. And with that, my final score is a 9 out of 10. Like I said before, I gave the first Quiet Place a 9.5 out of 10. The only reason I gave this one a 9 and 0.5 less than the first one was because I did have that little slight gripe about the ending. But yeah, 9 out of 10, 90%. I love the movie, and I really recommend you guys check it out if you haven't already. And yeah, guys, that's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this review, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn notifications on so you don't miss any time I upload a new video or go live. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.